Alright, I've got another lesson in the New Testament is Fake series. This lesson is titled, Flesh Sacrifice is Unholy. Now, I want to point out here, as I've been building up on for a while now, that the sacrificial system is not of God. That is when I really found out that the Torah is actually just flawed. It's just as fake as the New Testament. And that may mean that it was written directly for the New Testament to pull off a New Testament deception, which may then mean that the Hebrews weren't really doing their thing like this, and then somebody just happened to make a New Testament later. But I'm starting to think that the Torah was written just to produce the New Testament. But I need more time with that to search out that some more. But that's just my thought so far. But anyway, once I got to looking at the sacrificial system in the Torah or the Old Testament, that really changed my view of the Old Testament or the Torah. Now, here I want to read to you from the book of Leviticus and also from the New Testament. I'm going to start now with Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 10. It reads, "And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people." So this means he is done for. That's death right there. The God of Israel in the scriptures is done with that person, because he really isn't into any kind of flesh sacrificing and eating of animals on high holy days or any time, from what I gather in the scriptures. Now, he says if you eat any manner of blood, that means he's saying blood creatures, because the blood comes with the creature. So if you're eating animals, and it's funny to me, that they tell you to go and buy a lamb for Passover, and buy a cow and whatever you eat on holy days, when Israel really, from what I gather so far, had agricultural feasts. So how come they're having agricultural feasts, but they're being called an animal-eating nation? Agricultural feast before the Lord, but what they're really eating before the Lord was animals, and consuming the blood in those animals, as I've pointed out recently in a couple of my videos where I so clearly showed that there is blood still in the animal flesh that you are eating. And they are still looking for ways, still in 2018, in modern times, a couple thousand years after the Torah was said to have been written, they are still looking for ways to extract more of the blood out of the animals, proving to you that when you eat the animals today in 2018, just at your house on a regular day, or eating it with the Passover group that's gathered when you rent a hotel, a hotel convention center to go and have your Passover before the Lord, that you are still consuming the meat with the blood in it. But the Moses says, I will cut off that man. That means all the Hebrew Israelites eating all this meat stuff are cut off already. You have no salvation. You've got no hope. You are not going to see Jerusalem. You are not going to make it to heaven. If Jerusalem is heaven, you're not going there. I will even cut off that man. So he says, if you eat any manner of this blood, in other words, if you're eating animals, because that's where the blood is, because blood flows inside the flesh. Yet this Jesus comes doing another flesh sacrifice on Calvary. That basically the Most High saying right here is unholy. I don't want it, so I'm going to cut you off. And Jesus comes as an animal himself, as a lamb, to offer another flesh sacrifice. The New Testament is fake, because it builds upon the scriptures that show a curse by cursing and putting down flesh sacrifices and eating those sacrifices of flesh, of meat and blood. And the Son of God comes to offer one of those sacrifices, to be himself one of those sacrifices. And then he even tells people to eat him. Let's look at it here. From the New Testament now, in St. John chapter 6, verse 53 and 54. Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, so truly, truly, because this is the truth, he's speaking to you now, even though we're going to see it does not match with what we were told is truth in the Torah, in the book of Leviticus 17, verse 10, that we just read. But he says, truly, truly, in other words, of a truth, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Let's go back and read the word of the Most High from Leviticus 17:10. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, which means eating animals, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people. Go back to what the Messiah said in the New Testament. Except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life. He's saying, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you do not have any life. You will not be blessed with life. You don't have the life of the Most High, of my Father. But his supposed father just said in Leviticus 17 verse 10, go look it up. But I know your teachers already know it, because they've been teaching you it the wrong way, so you wouldn't figure it out. Because you are not supposed to think for yourself and read the scriptures for yourself. You're only supposed to listen and learn from them. So it says, if you eat any and drink any, you have no life. I will cut you off. But Jesus says, if you don't do this, you don't have any life. So the Most High is saying, you will have life if you do not eat the animals and the blood. But Jesus says, you will only have life if you eat my lamb animal flesh and drink my lamb blood from my body that I will shed for you. That's the only way you're going to have life. Where his supposed father was already saying, that's a death sentence for you. Jesus goes against the Torah, because Jesus and the New Testament and the apostles, they're all fake. Now let's read verse 54. Whoso eateth my flesh, that the Most High said not to eat, and drinketh my blood, that he said not to consume in Leviticus, hath eternal life. The Most High was saying, I will cut off that man, but Jesus said, you have eternal life. But I thought it said, whatever he sees or hears his Father does, that's what he does. Obviously that is not the truth. But he did say, truly, truly, I say unto you, verily, verily. In other words, truly, of a truth, this is the truth, that I will give you life, even though my Father said, you're going to get death. My Father runs the show. He even created me, so life came from him first. So he is the originator, the source of all life. And he says, I will bring death upon you. But Jesus said, I will give you life. Is Jesus working in tandem with his Father? Or is Jesus working against the Father? Is the New Testament Messiah that fulfilled Daniel's prophecy 69 and 1 week, the 70th week? Is that Messiah that fulfilled the bad Daniel prophecy being truthful and working with his Father? Or is the 69 and 70th week prophecy of Daniel speaking about a Messiah 2,000 years ago he died, who was going to come and contradict the word of his Father in the Old Testament, in the Torah, that made Daniel supposedly prophesy about 69th and 70th week? Is Jesus contradicting? Is the Hebrew Messiah contradicting the God that gave the prophet Daniel that 69th and 70th week? Tell me, how are you going to fix that? And I haven't even done the Daniel lesson yet. But hang tight. I'm going to destroy that too. So let's finish reading the verse here if I didn't finish reading it. Have eternal life if ye eat my blood, and I will raise him up at the last day. So he's telling you you've got eternal life, and he's also offering you resurrection. Whereas the Most High says, I will cut you off, you are dead, you are done for. I'll cut you off from your people. So Jesus offers two things. He says, if you eat my flesh and drink my blood, if you eat this animal lamb right here that will go upon Calvary's cross, you will get two things from me. You will get one, eternal life, which is spiritual life, and two, you will get a resurrection as well. But look at the two things that his supposed Father said already in the Torah from very early on, long before he supposedly came around from out of the pen of the Romans. His supposed Father said, I will do two things to the man that eats that animal flesh with blood in it. One, I will set my face against that soul. And two, I will cut him off from among his people. So no resurrection, no eternal life. Set my face against that soul means you don't have eternal life. You don't have spiritual life. And cut him off from his people, that means you've got no physical life as well. So how are you getting a resurrection from Jesus in St. John chapter 6 verse 54? Jesus and the New Testament is fake. Flesh sacrifice or animal sacrifice in the Torah leading up to the New Testament flesh animal lamb sacrifice on Calvary is all fake. It's unholy. It's an abomination to offer sacrifices of animals and even eat them as well. From the Torah, Old Testament, all the way to the New Testament, which is the new Torah. Animal sacrifices and blood eating is unholy. It's unrighteous. It's not set apart. It's iniquity. It's abomination. And those who do it of the Hebrew Israelites hate God. Now let me close it off here with something that you didn't teach me to look at, but I looked at it myself. Leviticus 17 verse 10, I'll read it one more time for you to make sure it's fresh in your mind. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people. And if you're eating the blood, like he's saying, it's because you're eating the meat that contains the blood. Because if the life of the flesh is in the blood, then the blood is in the flesh. The blood is in the meat. He says, if you eat any manner of blood, if you consume any manner of blood, go look up the manner of blood, manner from your Hebrew and from your English dictionary. Tell me what you come up with. Any manner of blood means in any kind, in any state, whether it's raw, if you like the raw meat, to eat it raw and uncooked or just barely cooked. Or if you have it like it well done and the blood is burnt in it till it gets brown or whatever, or dark or red by cooking it a long time. dried out blood because you burned it and baked the meat in the oven, and it blood dries on it, dries on the bone and dries in the meat, and you're eating that. Any manner. Manner means in any form, in any state, in any condition, in any amount, any trace, anything, any manner of, any type of blood. Any way the blood shows up in it. Any way the blood shows as a substance still left in it. Any manner means any form or shape or condition that the blood exists in. So whether the blood is dried up in it still, and dried up and locked up in the veins, and you're eating it, you know, I'm going to say that for another lesson anyway. But any manner, look at the word manner. It means in any condition, in any volume, in any amount. So if you're eating a lot of the blood, or you get out as much blood as you can, but the rest is left in it, because today in 2018 in science, they're still trying to find ways to get out all of the blood, which means some of the blood is still left in the meat. And if they're doing better with that today, that means they weren't doing that well with getting out that much blood. A couple thousand years ago, when the Torah supposedly was written, when Hebrew Israelite high priests were doing the stuff with the animals, that means they were consuming more blood back then in the Torah days. So you are learning a Torah from Hebrew Israelite high priests a couple thousand years ago who were eating the manner of blood that was more larger in its manner, where the manner that you eat it today is a lesser manner or a lesser volume. Less blood, but you still continue to consume it, even though the Most High says in any manner. That means in any amount. Any amount. You eat a lot of the blood, or if you get more of the blood, then the manner you are eating it is less manner, less amount of blood left in the meat. Left in the meat, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. That means at the moment when the high priest killed that animal, blood was in the flesh of the animal, giving life to the animal. And you know how the veins run already. They get thinner and thinner and spread out through the body. Tell me how you get out all of that blood through the fine, thinned out veins as it travels through the body. How do you pump out and wash out all those extremely thin veins and get out every blood? If they could have done it, it would have been done already. That's why they're looking for new ways to get out more of the blood, because they cannot do it. You are eating the blood when you go and rent your hotel convention center to go have Passover and other Hebrew holy days. Talking about you are bringing back the children of Israel. That's a deception. Just like the Hebrew Israelite high priests in ancient times were deceiving other Hebrews as well. Deception has run through the Torah from day one until day 2018. And it will continue, because Hebrew Israelites that eat meat with their teachers that tell them to buy the lamb and bring it. All those Hebrew Israelites that do this stuff, they hate God.